Hey guys! So today's movie I'm discussing on the channel is the latest film from James Cameron, the highly anticipated Avatar sequel, Avatar: The Way of Water. It just dawned on me that I've been talking about movies on YouTube for like 6 years now, and I've never, one, reviewed a James Cameron movie on my channel, and two, I've never really discussed my thoughts on Avatar, the most profitable movie of all time. Funny that. The reason for that is because the gaps between James Cameron movies just seem to have gotten bigger and bigger. It was like 12 years between Titanic and Avatar, and then it was 13 years between Avatar 1 and Avatar 2. Hopefully we won't have the same problem with Avatar 3, 4, and 5. Is there a sixth? Maybe, I don't even know. For the record, I was never a massive Avatar stan when it came out, or even now. My general thoughts on the movie were the visuals were impressive and the world building was neat, but the characters were quite forgettable and the story was just quite generic. You know, we'd seen it done before and done better. So with the first Avatar film, I was like, it's fine, but it never really had a hold on me. There's so many other James Cameron movies I would give multiple viewings more so than Avatar 1. So I honestly wasn't all that hyped to see the long-awaited sequel, The Way of Water, but I knew I was going to go see it because it's a James Cameron movie. He's a perfectionist filmmaker who seems to embody that whole you're only as good as your last movie mentality. He's always like raising the bar on himself, like going out of his way to invent new technologies just so he can achieve the next level of spectacle and immersion. So I really do have a lot of respect for the man. He really is in a league of his own. But what did I think of The Way of Water? I actually think I preferred this film a little bit more than the first one, but it still suffers from the exact same issues that the first film did: story, characters, and dialogue. While commendable for having an environmental message, the story is rather basic and kind of a retread of the first film, except in the first film, the message was we need to protect our forests, but in the sequel is we need to protect our oceans. And it even has the exact same antagonist from the first film, Quaritch, played by Stephen Lang, only this time he's been brought back and his memory and personality has been downloaded into an avatar clone of himself. Yep. The characters are plentiful and also archetypal and cliche. Some are even indistinguishable because this film is like 80% Na'vi characters, that's a lot of blue people, and then like 10% whales and 10% like real life human beings. So yeah, it actually gets a little bit hard to tell who is who in some scenes. And with the exception of maybe Quaritch, all the baddie type characters, mostly the evil invading humans, are very one-dimensional. They're all just blindly following orders to infiltrate, exploit, extract, and colonize, essentially. Nobody's questioning what it is they're doing. Nobody seems to have a problem with burning down peaceful Na'vi villages or hunting whales for profit or destroying fragile ecosystems when they've literally just left their own planet because they destroyed that one. It just portrays all the humans as ignorant, destructive, soulless idiots. And maybe that's what James Cameron was going for, but all the human characters lack dimension. But having said all that, I know what I was getting into when I was gonna go watch a James Cameron movie. I wasn't expecting, Shakespeare quality with the script. I'm here to escape, and James Cameron delivers on the promise of mind-blowing visuals and jaw-dropping action sequences. I actually found myself enjoying this movie the further along it went. And that's kind of the opposite of what usually happens with a 3-hour movie. Normally I can't wait for it to be over, but the further along we went, the more I was enjoying The Way of Water. Because yeah, the first hour of this movie was like, yep, okay, we're back on Pandora. It's a lot of the same. The second act, where the Sully family relocate to the Water Tribe colony, I was starting to get more into it, but I was also still a little bit conflicted. Because on the one hand, I was absolutely mesmerized by all the underwater sequences in the second act. It was like I was witnessing the birth of a new technological achievement in cinema. It was absolutely stunning. It's like I was watching a nature documentary or something. But I also could have done without the whole rival family / high school bullying trope. It's been done a million times. If Avatar 1 was Pocahontas with blue people, then Avatar 2 is every 90s high school drama with blue people. So yeah, the second part of this film was a bit of a mixed bag for me. But in the third act, Wow. A thrilling roller coaster of non-stop action and suspense. There were some action beats in the final third which had me going, oh holy sh**. But yeah, it is not an exaggeration of me to say that the last third of this film is some of the best, most exciting action of the entire decade. So yeah, the visuals and the action certainly feels like a step up from the first film, but that was kind of expected. What I wasn't expecting was how more emotionally moved I was by this film. The first Avatar film, I didn't really have an emotional response to anything. I didn't really care about the romance between Jake and Neytiri. And even when the mother tree fell, I was like, oh, it's sad, but I'm not really feeling anything. However, there's a certain point in Avatar: The Way of Water which did make me have an emotional response. I don't know if it's just me and I've done a lot of emotional maturing since 2009. Like, that was 19-year-old Luke. Now 32-year-old Luke cares about the planet more and the environment and the oceans and whales. And yeah, I just found myself actually feeling something in the moment because the scene with the whaling, it got to me. I wasn't expecting that either because, yeah, I remember how I felt watching the first one. I was just kind of indifferent towards it. But this, I actually did feel something, and that's saying something because I'm having an emotional response to fictional CGI whale/lobster/turtle hybrids that aren't even real. Like, I'm feeling something for these characters that don't exist, so props to James Cameron for making me feel that way. But yeah, I still know that I cared more about the whales in this than I did the whole Sully family. Sam Worthington is still unremarkable as Jake Sully, and Zoe Saldana, while she's good in this, she does kind of feel sidelined in this story, because the film is actually more about their kids in this movie, and the kids are fine, but I can't tell you any of the names. Let's see, what other talking points do I have? Unobtainium! No mention of it in this film, I think. Maybe that's because James Cameron caught on to how ridiculously dumb it sounded. But yeah, Quaritch has a kid in this one. Was that ever established in the first one? There's this human character called Spider, who's played by Jack Champion, who apparently is the kid of Quaritch, and they've got this whole weird not father, not son dynamic going on in this film, which I wasn't really a big fan of. And because Spider is human, he's usually got a face mask on with apparently an unlimited supply of oxygen. And he's also apparently impervious to underwater pressure. Maybe he's just adapted to the planetary conditions of Pandora. They might actually be setting that up in future films because the whole film is about adapting to new surroundings. If it is, then Pandora is screwed. Also, did composer Simon Franklin recycle some of the score of James Horner's score from the first film? Because there were certain moments in The Way of Water where I was getting a little bit of sonic deja vu, particularly in the whale hunting scene, like the aftermath of that. That sounded very familiar from when, the mother tree fell down in the first one. I could be wrong. Maybe they built upon it and did something a little bit different, but it did sound very familiar. I'm just like, okay, let's just recycle the same music, recycle the same plot. Just, yeah, it's a big old recycle, this film, in certain ways. And oh yeah, the frame rate. James Cameron is playing around with the frame rate in this movie. Sometimes it's 24 frames per second, sometimes it's 48. Why? This technique was a bit hit or miss for me. I think sometimes I was oblivious to it, but I did notice in the final third, during the action sequences, there was a lot of jumping back and forth between the two different frame rates, and it just felt very jarring. To me, it felt like James Cameron was still working out the kinks of this technique, and nobody around him had the balls to say, you know what, James? Why don't you just stick to one frame rate? Because he's James Cameron and he's very much more is more. Like, there's no denying, I can see the passion that he's putting on the screen, but this is clearly a case of a director having way too much creative control. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the whole frame rate experimentation thing going on here, and the 3D, while it was fine, didn't, blow me away. At least not in the same way it did back in 2009. It's like, what else is new? Let's speed through its Oscar chances real quick. We all know that it's already got the Best Visual Effects Oscar in the bag, but where else is it likely to get nominated? Most likely categories it'll show up in is sound, cinematography, production design, and maybe editing. As for Best Picture, I could see it happening. It definitely has a okay chance now that there's 10 slots, but it's not a lock for me. It's one I can see happening at the moment, and I could not. I'm gonna wait for the Producers Guild Awards selections to see if it gets in there. But yeah, I think there's a reasonable chance there. As for directing for Cameron, maybe, but I don't know. When it comes to the big, showy spectacle directing of the year, it's probably going to be Spielberg and maybe Damien Chazelle over Cameron, but it's not impossible. That's just me. What Oscar nominations are you predicting for The Way of Water? Let me know in that comment section below. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch it again? I'm actually off to see this again a couple days after Christmas with the boy for seeing it in glorious IMAX 3D. So yeah, that answers that question. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? I do! Like the previous Avatar movie, The Way of Water is ultimately a showcase of James Cameron's best and worst attributes as a filmmaker. Like, it's visually dazzling, it's well-paced and action-packed, but the characters, the story, and the dialogue come second to all the spectacle. But bloody hell, the spectacle is spectacular. But yeah, I do recommend it. Go see it in a cinema. This is what it's all about. And third question, what score to give it out of 10? I do actually think I prefer this one to the first film, even though I do have some flaws with it. I was entertained by it, and it is a film I can see adding to my collection. So I'm gonna give Avatar The Way of Water a 6 out of 10. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I do want to hear from you guys. Have you seen The Way of Water? If you have, what did you make of it? What score would you give it? Let your voice be heard in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hit a little thumbs up button for me. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars related content, don't forget to click subscribe. And if you want to follow me on any of my socials, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, it's all in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Carefield, and I'll see you next time.